Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to another For Honor Executions graded video. This is the series where we take a look at all of the For Honor heroes, go through all of their unique executions, and give them a grade to determine just how good their executions actually are. Now, for those of you who are watching this live, I encourage you in the chat right now to leave a little bit of a guess as to what you think Highlanders is going to be. What do you think he's going to rate? Just put your guess there. For those of you who have seen this series before, you know what's about to happen, but some of you may not know. So take a look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen right now, or down in the description below, and you'll be led to a video that's called That's an Execution, which goes into my rubric and all that about how I basically grade. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to kind of see what goes on but still need a refresher, here's what you get to look forward to. I'm going to take a look at every one of Highlander's executions, and I'm going to grade them on 4 criteria. 1 is lethality. How deadly is it? 2, realism. Is it realistic? Could you actually do this? 3, efficiency. Is this a good execution to do in a battlefield scenario? Is it quick? Is it effective? And then finally, cool factor. How cool is it? Does it look awesome? Does it suit his personality? All that kind of stuff. Can't wait to take a look at this, so without any further ado, let's get into Highlander's executions. First up is Intent to Behead. Awesome. Well, that's a lethality of 4 right there. The head came off, so this person is dead. For realism, could you actually do this? Actually, you 100% could. Claymores or large great swords like that are very heavy, and if you get enough force going with them, if you get them swinging just fast enough, you could take off a head with that sword. In fact, believe it or not, there's some tests that have been done to see if a sword that large could take off a head in a single swing, and they absolutely could. So this is realistic. That's a 4 out of 4 for realism. For efficiency, this was done very, very fast. Brought him down to the ground, swung once, took off the head, and he was done. That's a 4 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I know it's probably his most basic of executions, but I love it to death. It's just so solid. Just there's something about a big bruiser of a guy taking a massive sword and just cleaving someone's head off. Just it's simple, but it's effective, and it's just so awesome. It just shows so much power. I love it. That is a 4 out of 4 for cool factor, which gives this one a 16 out of 16, which is a 100%. This is an excellent execution. Next up is Deep Cut. All right, well, the placement of the sword here is right down center mass. You're probably going to get right underneath the heart, if not the heart itself. That's a 4 for lethality. For realism, you could do this. You could definitely do this. In fact, I like the fact that he's using the weight of the sword to just kind of push it down, and then it has to yank it out with both hands. I kind of like that. That shows that it's a hefty sword, and he's having to work a bit to get it in and then out. So that's a 4 for realism. For efficiency, I also gave this a 4. He is ensuring that the kill is good. I don't think he necessarily has to push the sword in deeper. With it as deep in as it already is, it's going to be deadly regardless. But just ensuring the kill, I can't really fault him for. And then cool factor, again, I love this. This is so awesome. Just this absolute power move of shoving the sword so much deeper in that it actually pushes the guy down. It actually makes him lean back. I think that's awesome. It makes it look like a sort of impalement, doesn't it? So that is another 4 for cool factor, which gives us a 16 out of 16, which is another 100%. Highlander already doing exceptionally well. Next is Donma Smash. Oof. Ooh. Ooh, okay. Well, the moment he put the sword through the throat like that, this person is dead. That's a 4 for lethality. Like, there's no question. This guy is done for. For realism, though, I'm going to give it a 2. When he put it through the neck like that at the very beginning, the spine was severed. Warden should not be able to stand, let alone put his hands on the sword like this. Look at this. Right there, the spine is severed. He should not have any signals going from his head to the rest of his body. So with the signal lost, there's no way he should be able to do this or move like that. He should be dead. So we'll give it a 2 for realism. For efficiency, it's a 1. Not only does this take too long, but he lets go of his weapon to do it. You shouldn't have had to. The moment you stab through the neck, you should have just pulled it out. I hate it whenever a warrior lets go of their weapon because that is very inefficient. You should not let go of your weapon unless there's absolutely no other choice. Like if you, and I get comments about this all the time. No, you can totally throw your weapon. Yes, I understand you can totally throw your weapon, but disarming yourself in the midst of battle for no good reason, that's never a good idea, and I will never approve of it. And then for cool factor, it's a 4. This is one of my favorite Highlander executions. It's just so brutal. It's so awesome. It's so just solid. This feels so good. I love this execution. So that gives this one an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Giggity. Next up is Highlander. Wow, my God. All right, that is a 4 for lethality. That is definitely a 4 for lethality. It has gone through the face, probably through the bottom jaw, into the chest, puncturing right through the heart. Oh, man, that is nasty. Yeah, this person's dead. That's a 4. For realism, though, that is a 1. That is a definite 1 for realism. While the way he threw it is not a problem, the accuracy is unbelievable. It just would not work that way. Let's look at this from the other perspective when he throws it. The odds of it actually landing where he needed it to go is incredibly unlikely. You'll notice that he even had to hit him back to make sure it worked, which will tie into efficiency as well. But the realism of this, no, I just don't see it happening. And even if it did land right where he needed it to, the odds of it going through in the manner he needed it to get that kind of kill, no, I don't believe that. So that's a 1 for realism. For efficiency, it's also a 1. You again are throwing your weapon, and this time it makes no sense. If you were to throw it right at him, like just chucking it at the guy, that'd be one thing. But he's throwing it directly into the air and hoping it lands where he wants it to. That's a 1. That's not efficient. That's not a good idea. Very poor use of the sword. But for cool factor, it's definitely a 4. The fact you could do this, the fact that he's tying it into a Scottish game, I think there is something funny about that. And it is the way it lands in him, just that is so disgustingly awesome. So that is a 4 for cool factor, which gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next up is Highlander. Yeef. Okay. All right. All right. For Highlander, that's a 4 for lethality. This person's dead. Essentially, you are shoving a stake through his midsection, breaking it off, and then shoving the other part through his chest. This person is dead. He's going to bleed out. That has gone through a lung. He's going to choke on his own blood. And then you slammed him down, making sure to impale him even deeper. This person's dead, no question. For realism, this is a 3. And I only ask about that I only give it a 3 for 2 reasons. Number 1, where did the stake come from? Was it just laying there? That seems kind of convenient, but okay, leaving that aside, I don't think you could so easily break a pole that thick off with just a hand strike. I think that's a little questionable. So I gave that a 3 for realism. For efficiency, I gave it another 1. He keeps putting his damn weapon down. Like, just set it down, bitch slap, grab a stake, just shove it in, put it through, and then grab the sword to finish him off. That was unnecessary. He could have just used the sword to finish him. It was really unnecessary to put down his sword for that, and so he loses points for that. That's a 1 for efficiency. For cool factor, though, I give it a 3. While it is really cool, I do like this execution. Something about it just doesn't hit me the right way. I feel it's a little off, a little weird. It also seems a little inconsistent. Why does he have a stake next to him? I know it's a reference to his 4th feat where he summons down stakes to rain on his opponents, but the stakes aren't his to throw down. He calls on his allies to throw them. So why does he have the stake? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I know it's a little nitpicky, but it's just something that I question. I do like it, though. I do like this execution, which is why it still gets an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Giggity. Next is Northern Brutality. All right. Well, the neck break itself doesn't look that lethal, but shoving the sword through that part of the body, that's lethal. You basically put it right through center mass. It's going to cause massive bleed out. It's going to hit all the internal organs that need to be hit. This person is dead. So that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. You could do this. That sword is hefty enough and strong enough to be able to go through the body, and I suppose you could get it at a proper angle to break the neck as well, so okay. For efficiency, I guess I'll give it a 4. You did stab him through the back. This person is dead, so I mean, I can't I can't fault you for that. You took care of the problem, so that's a 4 for efficiency. For cool factor, though, I gave it a 3. I'm just not as big a fan of this one. It's kind of creative, but the neck break, I don't know. Look at the body. The body barely moves. There's no real jerk. There's no twist. There's nothing there. Like, just look. Highlander does more moving than the Warden, so the neck break seemed a little unnecessary, but still, I can't fault it. And so that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. It's still good. I just, I don't know. Maybe I was expecting something more. Maybe that's just me. Next is Cruel Demise. Oh, no. I hate that. That's so mean. Okay. For lethality, that is a 4 for lethality. He plunged the crossguard in through the eye, most likely hitting the brain. Especially since his body stops moving right after it goes through, which means that signals have been cut off, so he's probably hit the brain, which would kill. For realism, though, I gave it a 2. You would not be able to plunge it that deep in with that kind of kick. And then the idea of there's a lot here that doesn't make sense. The kick would require a lot more power to put it in, and then using the cross guard to trip up the body like that and then planting it into the shin. Like, I don't think you could stick it into the shin that easily, and even if you did, the idea that you could kick it from the shin into the eye, no, I don't buy that entirely. For efficiency, I give it a 1 again. This takes way too long. I'm glad that he brought him down to his butt, but then he plants it in the shin and then kicks it into the eye. I don't like that. Once he brought him down to the ground, he should have just killed him right there. He shouldn't have wasted his time with the shin strike and then the kick into the eye. No, I wouldn't go there. That's a 1. And for cool factor, I gave it a 3. While there is something satisfying about this, I feel like the kick is almost a little anticlimactic. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. It just doesn't work for me. But that's just me. That's just me. So that gives this one an 11 out of 16 again, which is a 69%. Another giggity. Next is Fatal Toss. Oh boy. All right. Fatal Toss. Well, the head came off, so that's a 4 for lethality. Pretty easy. For realism, that's a 1. First of all, by throwing the body into the sword like that, the sword would fall over. He didn't get the sword deep enough into the ground to make it stay put. And then after landing his head into the sword, I doubt that the kick would be able to fully take off the head. It might cut halfway through the head, but I don't think it would take off the head. In fact, my issue is, even if the sword did stay standing, once he kicks the head like that, it would also knock the sword over. The sword is not stuck deep enough into the ground for that to work, so that's a 1 for realism. For efficiency, again, you're putting down your weapon. I don't know why you're doing that. You should not be doing that, so that is a 1 for efficiency. He needs to stop putting down his weapon. That's not a good idea. But for cool factor, I gave it a 4. This is so cool. It's so brutal. You know what? It's so weird. Even though realistically and efficiency all seem to take a hit with Highlander, his cool factor just keeps winning. I love it so much. It's so well done. Highlander is such a brute, which gives this a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is Heave-Ho. Well, given the placement of the sword, just below the heart going through the internal organs, the size of the sword means, yeah, this will definitely kill. That's a 4. For lethality, that's a 4. For realism, though, that's a 3. I don't think you could throw them that far with just that heave. And I'd also like a little bit more, leverage to be used here rather than just pure brute force. I think he's using his shoulder for the leverage, but I'd like a little bit more than that. Warden's not exactly light, so again, that's semantics. So that's a 3. And then for efficiency, I give that a 2. There were much better ways to kill this guy rather than just lock your sword in his body and then throw him. I feel like there were better ways to handle that. I know it's quick, which is why it gets a 2, but there were much more efficient ways to do this rather than just, let's throw him. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. I'm not impressed by this one. This is probably one of the first ones where I can honestly say, yeah, this one doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of weak tier. I'm not a fan. So that gives this one an 11 out of 16, which is another 69%. Giggity. Next is 360 Takedown. All right. Well, with 360 Takedown, let's see the depth of that penetration. Yeah, it's plenty deep enough. He would have been striking the heart. The strike to the back might have hit the heart too. Don't know how deep that went, but here definitely he's hitting the heart, so that's definitely a kill. That's a 4 for 4 for lethality. For realism, you could do this. Yeah, I actually totally believe you could do this the way he's doing it. Yeah, so that's a 4 for lethality. Sorry, a 4 for realism. For efficiency, this is pretty quick, and he keeps the weapon always going in an arc-like pattern to make sure that people can't get close to him. So this was pretty quick and well done, and a creative use of both sides of the sword. So I give this a 4 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I love it. I give it a 4 for that too. I think it's a really cool execution. I think it fits Highlander. I think it's creative use of the sword. Very cool. That gives this one a 16 out of 16, which is a 100%. Not bad, Highlander. Not bad. Next is No Mercy. There is no mercy. Well, that is definitely a 4 for lethality. Piercing right through the side of the chest into the heart. Yeah, I totally buy that. That's a kill. That's a 4 for 4. For realism, I give it a 3. I give it a 3 for taking off the arm more than anything. Now, here's the thing. The Claymore probably could take off an arm. I don't think it would do it that easily. I think it would be better done on a downward stroke than a side stroke because the arm bone is going to be a little tough. But I'll give it some credit because, I mean, he's leaning on that arm. Warden's leaning on it, so there's tension on the arm. So I think, yeah, I think there's some precedent for that. But I don't know if it would be that easy, so I give it a 3. For efficiency, though, it's a 4. This was very quick, very well done. Took care of the enemy fast, and that's good. And then for cool factor, definitely 4. I think it's a solid execution. It's absolutely brutal, and that's what you want from the guy. So definitely a really, really cool execution that I think works for Highlander. That gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Very well done, Highlander. Next is Bone Crusher. All right. For Bone Crusher, that's a 4 out of 4 for lethality. That strike to the face with the hilts driving into the face like that, I think that would definitely cause, if not a puncture into the brain, internal brain damage, which would definitely kill. The weight, here's the thing, the weight of that sword is monumental, and it's going to be incredibly damaging. So I will give that a 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 4 as well. Grabbing the sword by the blade is fine. I don't necessarily like that you do that. And someone may say, oh, he's doing it against a dude in armor. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I still am not a huge fan of the idea, but, I mean, you could do this, so there's no reason to believe you couldn't. For efficiency, though, I think my big problem here is, look, I'll give efficiency a 3. I'll give it a 3, but my big problem here is you could have just used the blade. You could have done the same motion with the blade, and I would have liked it fine. I think using the crossguard while fine against armored opponents, we don't really count the enemy's armor here, so I think it could have been fine without doing that. So yeah, that's a 3. That's a 3. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3 as well. Again, just not a big fan of not using the blade. Use the blade. Cut him in half lengthwise. Chop off his hips, then chop off his head. I would have been totally fine with that. That would have been totally awesome. So that gives this one a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Next is Feigner. Yeah, the new one. All right, well, the plunging of the sword into the midsection like that would definitely kill. That is a 4 for lethality. Man, all of his attacks are pretty dang lethal, aren't they? For realism, I gave it a 4. You could do this. There's no reason you couldn't. For efficiency, it's quick enough. It's distracting, so we'll give it a 3. I think there was no need to do the fake out. Just stab him. He's clearly not trying to defend himself, so you could have just stabbed him. So that's a 3 for efficiency. And for cool factor, I gave it a 2. I don't. All right, I said my piece about this earlier. I know a lot of people like it. I know a lot of people think it's funny because it's a fake out of another execution he does. My problem is I don't see the point of it. I don't think it's that funny. I think it's kind of a goofy. I think he could have just stabbed him. I don't think that there was anything other than that he needed to do. So I just didn't find it that funny. I gave it a 2 because I think, okay, there's an element that I think about it that is kind of funny, but I didn't laugh, so that gives this one a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. And I know that there's some people who are going to have some contention about this, that, oh, it's funny, it's a reference to another execution. I don't know. It's just a fake out stab. That's it. I don't know. That just doesn't do it for me. Next is Hilt it up. Well, the initial strike into the side there, right into the middle of the body, would be deadly enough, but then driving it deeper, then slamming the head into the crossguard, I think that, yeah, 4 for 4 for lethality. For realism, actually, believe it or not, I think you could do this. The sword is definitely heavy enough to be able to go that deep in, and I think if you drove someone's head into the crossguard, they would at least bonk their head, so I think you could do this. I'm actually glad that it didn't go all the way through. I think that it's neat that it stopped halfway through and he took advantage of that. So I'll give it a 4 for that. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. Takes too long to do. Didn't need to slam his head into the crossguard. He could have just pulled the sword out and it would have been done. I don't think he really needed to drive it halfway through like that. So that's why I say that's a 2. But for cool factor, it's a 4. That's a really cool execution. I think it's really awesome. Just fits Highlander very well. This brute who just uses his massive strength to do what he needs to do. So definitely like that. So that gives this one a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Next is Spin the Bottle. All right, Spin the Bottle. Well, given the placement of the sword, it's going through the heart. This is deadly. That's a 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 2. I don't think the person would still be standing once you spun the sword like this. I'm pretty sure he would just fall over. So I don't buy that very much. That's a 2 for realism. For efficiency, I give it a 1. You let go of your weapon. You wasted time with the kick around. You shouldn't be doing that. It's goofy. And plus, if he does fall over, you need to run over to catch your weapon. That was very dumb. So that's a 1 for efficiency. For cool factor, I give it a 2. I'm just not a fan of this execution. I know some people like it, and it's relatively quick considering his other executions, but it just looks goofy to me. I'm not the biggest fan of it, and it doesn't at all reference Spin the Bottle the game because Highlander doesn't end up kissing anybody, which I feel is a bit of a robbery. So that gives this one a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. And you had to have a bad one. And finally, pathetic. All right, well, that is a 4 for 4 for lethality. You're slamming the sword into the middle section and dragging it out, causing massive internal damage. This person is so dead. For realism, 4. I like the fact that he's dragging and the guy's trying to pull it out. Like, it's so rough to pull out. And Warden's trying to fight. No, let my inside stay in. But then yanks it out anyway. For efficiency, I gave it a 4. I know that it takes a second to do this, but that's mostly because Warden is trying to stop him, trying to grab the sword. But it only takes one good jerk to get it out. So like, no, okay, let go. There we go. And then it's done. So we'll give it that. For cool factor, I did just give it a 3 because at the end of the day, it is just a drag. It is just strike into the stomach and then do a kind of drag. I don't know. It just doesn't impress me all that much. It's kind of what I'd expect. I feel like this is something you could also see from a Raider execution. So it didn't really impress me as much as some of the others, but it's still fine. So that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Still really good. All right, we have wrapped up all 16 of Highlander's executions, and after taking a look at all of them, adding all their scores together and dividing by 16 to get an average, we get an average of, y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this? An 81%. Yes, that's right, an 81%. My mind was blown. I was so shocked because I thought it's going to be so much lower than this. But the truth is, Highlander did something that none of the other heroes so far have been able to do. He got perfect scores in all lethality. He was deadly in everything he did. The Claymore sword is such a massive, destructive weapon. It just cleaves through things. It's one of the few weapons in the game that I do believe could very easily take off a head if it needed to. And people are going to point out, oh, but Raven, what about the weight of the weapon? Wouldn't that be difficult to use? Well, first of all, you got to realize that the way Highlander uses it is kind of believable. He's not wielding it with a perfect swordsmanship way like Warden does or like Warmonger does. We see him hefting the thing. We see him using massive swings and massive strikes to get his work done, but it's still effective. And he does very well in the lethality category. And because he does so well in the lethality and most of the cool factor categories, that gives him a very good score to start out with. And after that, it's just how realistic and how efficient is he going to be. And granted, he wasn't realistic or efficient in everything, but he was in enough of them to help give him a very decent score. So I want to say that Highlander really pulled out a surprising score for me and Lark as we were looking at this. So I hope that you guys got close. How did you guys think this went? Do you think that Highlander did well in this grading? Do you think that he got the score he deserved? Was it lower or higher than what you thought? Let us know in the comments down below, but be respectful. And as always, we will see you in our next video. Take care.